So before you do anything else, open up an untitled project, go into the DaVinci Resolve and open Preferences. I'm assuming you haven't done all of this already. So for you new users out there, the very first thing that you want to make sure that you do is to choose an appropriate scratch disk here in the Media Storage panel. This is a list, so you can theoretically add as many scratch disks as you want. I believe on Linux you need to add disks here for them to appear in the media storage browser. However, on Windows and on the Macintosh, the most important thing is the first item that you add to this list. If you read this bit of text below, it says the first volume in the above list will be used to store gallery stills and cache files. And cache files are particularly important in DaVinci Resolve 12 for a variety of reasons. You want to click the Add button and choose the fastest, biggest media RAID that you happen to have. Media RAID or drive array or whatever disk you're using to be your accelerated repository for media and high performance files of any kind. I'm going to cancel this, however, because I've already selected Media RAID 2, which is the first and only item in this list. If we jump up ahead, there are a few system preferences. You can choose a different supported language from the language pop-up. We have Japanese and Chinese. And there's this pre-allocated system memory preference that defaults to 4 gigabytes. Pre-allocated system memory is specifically for holding frames in memory that are being processed in different ways. And this field was added so that you could change this. If you've got a lot of RAM, and by a lot of RAM I'm saying 64 gigabytes to 128 gigabytes, and you're using extremely high resolution source media. For those of you who are doing finishing and who are doing color work, you may want to check the Use Gray Background Interface checkbox. This checkbox desaturates the background in every page of DaVinci Resolve. Now, by default, it's this kind of blue-gray interface, which I'm going to leave on for purposes of the editing title. But if you're doing finishing work or any work with Resolve where you really care about having a color-critical comparison of the image versus a desaturated neutral background surrounding it, then you'll want to turn this on. Below, you're simply shown a list of any GPUs you have available to your system. DaVinci Resolve Studio is capable of supporting as many GPUs as you can fit into your system, whereas DaVinci Resolve is only capable of supporting 1 GPU on most machines, or 2 GPUs specifically on the Apple Tubular Mac Pro. Moving down, you'll want to be aware of this Video I/O and GPU panel. At top, you have an option for using an interface for capture and playback. At bottom, you have an option for Resolve Live for people who are doing on-set work. If you have this set to none, your performance may improve a little bit. If you have it set to a connected device, you want to make sure that that device is connected and turned on, because having this enabled while that device is not actually available can compromise your performance and cause Resolve's playback in the edit page to be a little funny. So if you don't have a device connected or turned on, make sure this is set to none. If you do want to monitor on an external display, on a broadcast display, then you want to connect your Blackmagic device, install the drivers, have it turned on, and then enable it right here. Down below, you have additional options for using a red rocket, if it's available at all, for whether or not you want to use the GPU to do red debayering, for whether or not you want to use your display GPU in a single GPU situation for doing computation, for doing the effects work. This is on by default. And you have the choice of whether or not you want to use the system audio output instead of the audio output going out to your Blackmagic capture and output device. So you can turn that on and off right here. GPU processing mode is probably best left to auto in various situations unless you have a specific troubleshooting issue that you're trying to overcome. Your other options are OpenCL, which is what you use if you're using an ATI GPU or other kind of GPU, such as the built-in Intel onboard GPUs, or CUDA if you're specifically using an NVIDIA card that supports CUDA. Again, leaving this to auto most of the time will be just fine. Audio, and I'll cover this again when we talk about audio, is specifically for VST effects. And this allows you to add any installed VST effects that you've got in your library to DaVinci Resolve's list for loading on startup. VST effects, unlike open effects, don't always go into the same predictable location. So this list allows you to add VST effects that you have installed on your machine so that DaVinci Resolve knows where they are. Last thing I'll talk about is this control panels option. This allows you to select any color control surfaces that you have installed, ranging from the DaVinci Resolve control surface available from Blackmagic through various tangent devices, the Avatar's color, the Oxygen Tech panel, and the JL Cooper Eclipse panels. So you have a lot of different options here. More items are added to this list all the time. However, none of these are really going to help us with editing specifically. These are all mainly for doing color correction in the color page. So once you have all of these things set up, you'll need to save. You'll immediately be told that any changes you've made will take effect the next time Resolve is started, which means you'll need to restart Resolve, which I'll just go ahead and do right now, so that I can get clean and fresh back to the project manager so that we can have a closer look at how you can use the project manager to manage all of the projects that you're working with.